I live in Oregon in the US now, and it's kind of like New Zealand in that it's lush green, rainy a lot of the times, cloudy a lot of the times, but it varies. And then when the sun comes out, like yesterday, everybody's just sparkly-eyed and happy. So this is a song called Thank You God for the Sun. Kind of a children's song, but it's good for all ages. Thank you, God, for the light of the sun. Thank you, God, for the rainbow. Thank you, God, for this day begun. Thank you, God, for the sun. Thank you, God, for the bright summer flowers. Thank you, God, for the green fields. Thank you, God, for these wakeful hours. Thank you, God, for the flowers. Thank you, God, for the smile of your love. Thank you, God, for our gladness. Thank you, God, for the stars above. Thank you, God, for your love. Thank you, God, for your love. Isn't that nice? Simple little children's song that Kriya and I wrote, but make everybody happy. And let's do Dare to Be Different. Be different, dare to be free, dare to roam far like wind on the sea, fly like a gull, soar high on the air, be strong in your courage when others despair. Never in anger, never in haste, go without pride, be never abased. Freedom is yours if freedom you give. To all give it freely, in freedom you'll live. Mountains that stand up tall to the sky tell us no dreaming is ever too high. Dare to climb boldly, brave that high peak. You'll never know failure if bravely you seek. Dare to be different, dare to be free, dare to roam far like wind on the sea, fly like a gull, soar high on the air, be strong in your courage when others despair. Be strong in your courage when others despair. Applause is legal. Okay, so then let's do Never Got Fear. Nice. Like Kavita said that exercise was one of her favorite energization. This is one of my favorite songs. This one, Kriya. Though green summer fade and winter draw near, my Lord, in your presence I live without fear. Through tempest, through snows, through turbulent tide, the touch of your hand is my strength and my guide. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. I that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. The dancers will pass, the singing must end. I welcome the darkness with you for my friend. So now let's have a chant or two, take some little bit of meditation. Chant by Yogananda, I have made thee, pole star of my life. I have made thee, pole star of my life. I have made thee, pole star of my life. Though my sea is dark and my stars are gone, though my sea is dark and my stars are gone, still I see the path through thy mercy. Still I see the path through thy mercy. Sing along if you like. I have made thee, pole star of my life. I have made thee, pole star of my life. Though my sea is dark and my stars are gone, though my sea is dark and my stars are gone, still I see the path through thy mercy. Still I see the path through thy mercy. I have made thee, pole star of my life. I have made thee, pole star of my life. Though my sea is dark and my stars are gone, though my sea is dark and my stars are gone, still I see the path through thy mercy. Still I see the path through thy mercy. I have made thee, pole star of my life. I have made thee, pole star of my life. Though my sea is dark and my stars are gone, though my sea is dark and my stars are gone, still I see the path through thy mercy. Still I see the path through thy mercy. I have made thee, pole star of my life. I have made thee, pole star of my life. Though my sea is dark and my stars are gone, though my sea is dark and my stars are gone, still I see the path through thy mercy. Still I see the path through thy mercy. I have made thee, pole star of my life. I have made thee, pole star of my life.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. All of you are familiar faces, almost all. Some of you are meeting for the first time. Is this on? Yeah. So we'll just jump right in. We have a lot of different concepts that we're trying to integrate today, and nothing will be fully comprehensive. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it has much volume. There, is that too much? How's that? Is that better? Okay, just allows me not to strain my voice. We have a lot of different concepts that we're pulling together today, so I'm going to just list out some words. That seems too loud now, Dambar, because every time I shift, I am getting something funky here. Yeah, the happy medium. Very good. A psychic woman actually said she used to be promiscuous, then she became very judgmental, and now she's a happy medium. It's just too terrible. That was an honor. Dambara loves to pun, so I thought that one was really good. I wanted to put a few words up on the board today. We're going to be working with the word, we have the word chakras, that this pen doesn't work. We have the word chakras. We have the word Kriya. That implies the word kundalini. And words that are also inherent in this are discipleship. And I think the key, oh boy, this is fun. The key word of all, yes, my mic is flaking out. Okay, there, I've got it. Magnetism. So I'm going to just sort of, because most of you have heard me talk on some of these subjects before, I need to sort of find another way to go into it. I think that works now. I think it was the way I was holding the mic. So let's just keep this out and hope this all works. Oh, I know the other word I wanted. This is the word. The word is Maya. Well, we're going to lose the microphone this afternoon. Okay. I want to start with the word Maya. Maya is, like all the words up there except for magnetism and discipleship, it's a Sanskrit word. And often we simply have to use a language other than English, as you've heard me explain at different times, because there's no English concepts for it. Maya is an absolutely wonderful word. And it has many different definitions, but the primary one is illusion, which actually also translates into delusion. But the word illusion is the more interesting word. The tradition of India can be summed up with this phrase, Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma can be translated to mean eternal religion or simply that which is. And the whole idea from the ancient Indian tradition is that there is simply a nature to reality. And when we understand the nature of reality, we understand how to live. And all spirituality, all great masters, all revelations, all philosophies, if they have actually truly perceived reality and not just made something up, influenced by Maya, they'll all trace back, one way or another, if you understand them properly, they'll all come back to the principles of Sanatana Dharma, because it's simply the way that we're made. And the way that we're made is important to understand, because the way we're made results in whether or not the choices we make give us health, happiness, prosperity, or whether we're ill, unhappy, and always feel ourselves to be in a state of lack. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are actually in a state of lack. It depends on what we're accustomed to. I remember a woman coming to me once and was extremely concerned about her financial condition, and her salary was extremely high. Their net income was extremely high, but it was going down some percentage. She was conscious enough to be embarrassed by her anxiety. But nonetheless, for her, it was real, because she was used to having a certain amount, now she was going to have less. So we live in this state of either unhappiness or lack or a sense of fulfillment, and it's not based a lot on what we actually have, it's how we perceive and what makes us happy. Now, the whole process of life experience and lifetimes of experience is really just living through this, what works and what doesn't. And most of the time we find out what does work by testing out what doesn't work. And that, unfortunately, has been the process that almost everyone goes through until you're born into an incarnation in which you have tested out enough of what doesn't work that you start right from the beginning in the right direction. I mentioned in one of these classes recently that I've always enjoyed very good health, but I've also always taken very good care of my physical body and my physical health since my late teens or so, when I became conscious enough to do it. It just occurred to me relatively recently that undoubtedly I had abused my physical body in many incarnations and borne the price of that. And therefore I can't do it now. When I see people eating wrongly or failing to drink enough water or various things that make your body ill, I shiver for them, because I've lived through it and I know what the consequences are going to be, and they aren't going to be pleasant. So we go through this cycle of discovering what are really the principles of Sanatana Dharma, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, just is the way that we're made. If we live very selfishly, very angrily, always use people for our advantage, and gradually find ourselves abandoned and disliked by everyone, I mean, there's no real surprise there, but we find out by living through it. Now, why is it so difficult to know? And that's the question that everybody asks. And I can't answer it from the point of view of why did God make the world the way he made it. In order to be able to answer a question like that, you have to be on the consciousness of the one who made it, to be able to understand the reasoning behind it. But one of the fundamental principles of Sanatana Dharma is this concept of illusion. That the world that we live in is simply not what it seems. And what's so interesting about the times that we're living in now is that science itself, I mean, this is not just religion. In fact, it's not even primarily religion, because most of the churches, even though Sanatana Dharma stands behind them, they've wandered very far away from it. But science itself is just doing all of these experiments from the outside, and they're just penetrating farther and farther, and they are discovering that the world as we know it is an illusion. And that these thoughts, I don't understand those principles very well. A friend of mine is writing a book about God and science, and he understands it well, and I'm sort of his canary in the cage. That's in the mining world. Before they were sophisticated machines to measure the air quality, they would just take a canary down into the mine. And if the canary started choking, they would realize there was something wrong and they would all exit from the mine. So I'm his canary in the cage. If I can understand what he's writing, then it's comprehensible, because my mind goes there so little. But it's really just fascinating how much documented research there is nowadays that just keeps taking away one after another of the concepts that we're so wedded to. Our separateness, our mortality, the solidity of the world. I can't talk while you're doing that. So what's going on?
I'm just making this.
Thank you, I appreciate it. But there's much more, much deeper illusions that we're working with. And and here, this is what I was wanting to say. The thing about Maya, there's two dimensions of it. When the scientific world talks about it, they just talk about conditions being a certain way, and they talk about it very impassively and very impersonally. But the illusion of Maya has more than just a passive word, because Maya is also considered to be a goddess. Okay, the Maya has a form, and it's the form of a goddess, or a magician, sometimes they say. Because Maya is not, this illusion is not passive. If the illusion were passive, it would just be sitting there, we could analyze it, we could see through it, and we could go past it. But Maya has much more subtlety than that. Because what Maya does is Maya casts a spell over us. So Maya is like a living creature who's an illusionist, so to speak. And that we all get caught up in this perception. I remember when I was about 19 or 20, and it was the first time a friend of mine was getting married. And I hadn't known her parents. Let me just try to remember this. Yes, I hadn't known her parents. Her parents were probably two of the most unhappily married people I have ever met. Or maybe they just made such a strong impression on me because I was so young. They clearly disliked each other. They treated each other very badly, and there wasn't the slightest bit of happiness in their life together. And yet the mother especially, who was clearly miserable, was so excited because her daughter was getting married. And the whole time that I had anything to do with that, I was so confused. Because does the mother dislike her child? Like, what is this? She's sending her down this very path, which has clearly been such a disaster for her. Just self-evident. And I still, to this day, I would just think about that. And it's this force of Maya that holds us all, that we think that somehow it's going to come out differently this time. And in fact, Yogananda says something very interesting about reincarnation. He said, if you came into life every time and it was just a complete disaster, we really wouldn't come back. But what happens is, as he put it, he said, it almost works. And that's why we do it over and over again. It was just perfect, except that I did, in fact, marry the wrong person, or I didn't marry at all, or I didn't have children, or I did have children. Or I was a man, or I was born in the wrong country, or I went into banking when I really wanted to be a painter. It's just, everything was just right except this. And so I'm just going to do the whole thing again, except I'm just going to adjust this little piece of it, and then it's going to work just right. So you adjust this little piece, and then this little one slides out, so the next time you have to get this one correct, and then this one slides out. And he said, it's the force of Maya, giving us the idea that step by step, just a little bit needs to be different, but still working in that essential framework, that the framework is I just need to get it organized out there. And what we gradually realize, and this is the progressive stages, which I think I'll go into more deeply this afternoon, is that we begin to realize it is not a matter of making that world conform, but it's a matter of beginning to understand what you would call the instrument of perception, which is the consciousness with which I am viewing this. I had a very interesting experience many years ago. There was a man named Richard Wurmbrand. He's probably off the planet by now because he was elderly then. And he was a Jewish man who lived in Romania, who later converted to being a Lutheran and became a pastor. His timing was really terrible for being both a Jew and a Lutheran, because first he got to be persecuted by the Nazis, and then he got to be persecuted by the communists, because he was by the Nazis as a Jew and by the communists as a Christian. And he was an extremely courageous man. He's written a number of books. They're a little bit chilling, but they're really terrific to read. And he ended up spending many years in very, very, very arduous conditions in communist prisons. But he refused to repudiate his Christian faith and just held to it the whole time. And he came out of these very difficult situations. Gradually he became very famous worldwide, and he was ransomed out of Romania. Basically the community, the world community, bought him and his wife and his family out of that country. And he because of people at Ananda, we knew him. He would go around. He came to America and he started lecturing. And when he was going to speak at one of the local churches, our whole Ananda community went to see him because we knew what a great saint he was. It was a very interesting situation. the church was a sort of an odd church. There was like this podium in the middle, and you faced this way and you were facing into the sanctuary, and you faced this way and you were facing into the fellowship hall. And it wasn't a very large church, and our Ananda community was local there, and we brought so many people that we sort of overran their sanctuary. So they put all of us in the fellowship hall, and then all of the congregation was on the sanctuary side. And Richard Wurmbrand, because everything had been taken away from him in prison, his entire concept of Jesus and God and life and where joy came from had nothing to do with church dogma anymore. He'd far transcended it. Even though he believed it, he'd experienced Christ consciousness. And so he stood and he would talk to the congregation about the dogmas of Christianity. And then he would turn to us and he would talk to us about the inner experience of Christ consciousness. And then he would turn back and he would talk to the congregation about the dogmas. And he just sort of went back and forth. And it was very sweet. He knew who Swami Kriyananda was. And somehow about halfway through, he was very informal. He looked at Kriyananda and he said, "Is it a condition of your community that only beautiful women are allowed to join?" And Swami very sweetly answered. He said, however they come, they become beautiful. Meaning they become, and this is what Richard was responding to also, was just the light that he saw in everyone's eyes. Now here's what was interesting. There was another man on the program with him who had also been through the same experiences. Richard Wurmbrand, even though he was a little frail in his body, he was radiant. He was laughing. He was making jokes. He was just overflowing with positive magnetism. And there was this other man who'd been through the same experiences, who was small and bitter and just had almost nothing, happy to say about anything, who was very painful to hear him speak. Same experiences. But one person had taken them as a challenge to his inner awareness and had used them to break the illusion of Maya, and the other had allowed all that suffering to just sink him even deeper into it. It was just amazing, because there were the two of them just like this. And Richard was full of love and compassion for this other man, but just situations, and the Yogananda has a principle that conditions are always neutral, and that how we take them is whether it determines whether it's positive or negative for us, happy or sad. That is a stunningly challenging concept. That doesn't mean they're neutral in the sense that everybody's always nice to you, or that nobody makes mistakes, or you're never betrayed, or everything was always perfect. They're neutral in the sense that we always have a choice as to which way we're going to take it. And that is one of the principles of Sanatana Dharma, is that by our inner consciousness, which is what all this is about, we manage to see through this illusion. Now, not everyone wants to do that. Many people just really want to just get the external world organized and make it work. And the interesting thing is, when you practice meditation or any of these teachings or get good at any of these principles, you can also do that. Because the keys to success are all about magnetism and being in tune with energy and being able to generate the right attitude. So it's not like you end up having to be living through concentration camps or anything like that necessarily. But there's a great deal of difference between, the way I've been putting it to myself recently, being pleased with your life and actually being happy. Because being pleased with your life leaves you so that if conditions suddenly change, all you were was really pleased. And conditions have a way of suddenly changing. But if you've actually learned to make yourself happy, then even when conditions change, it's a challenge to your happiness, that's for sure. But you can go back, to first principles and begin to sort of figure out where it comes from. I was, in the life that I lived in the Ananda communities, the first 10, 12 years was really like heaven on earth, just living out in this completely primitive rural community on this great adventure. a little bit later, in 1990, our community entered into a period of time where we had 12 years of, we were being sued. We were being fiercely attacked by a sister organization of all things, not of our own making, but a very closely related religious organization who resented having competition. That's really the only way you can put it. And had that sense, which happens in religion, that, you know, we're orthodox and you're heresy. And in the American legal system, they managed to make a case out of intellectual property and publicity rights and copyrights and so on. And because there was a great deal of money on that side, they were able to make that go on for 12 years. Yeah, cost us $13 million. Just amazing. But it was the grace of God. We just made it through. But it was also a fabulous adventure, because when somebody really tells you that you're absolutely wrong, you get to try to decide whether you are or not, don't you? If nobody ever attacks you, you just do what you do because you're doing it. It's comfortable. You're pleased. Or if nobody ever challenges your faith and everybody believes just like you do, you don't ever really have to ask yourself, why do I really believe this? But when people are telling you that you're deluded and you're wrong and that God is not going to welcome you when you get to heaven, there's the wonderful joke about St. Peter showing the new person around heaven, and they come to this place where there's a big wall, and all of a sudden St. Peter says, you know, shh, be quiet. And then he says, and then you can just name any other group that you want. The Catholics, the Mormons, the whoever they are. They're on the other side of the wall and they think they're the only ones here. So shh, we don't want to disillusion them, we just let them think that. Right? But you get to find out what is true. No, it was not fun. It got really, really ugly before it finished, really ugly. It started out intellectual property, etc., and that case collapsed right away. So it went to character assassination. And we were just accused of everything possible. Being morally reprehensible is how I would refine it. When people would sort of say to me, you know, what about this case? I would just say, I don't know, what do you think? Do we appear morally reprehensible to you? I mean, what do you think? Well, legal cases are a nightmare. Having finished all that and having gone through that whole thing, I had a very interesting experience. I waited to become happy again. It wasn't that I'd been unhappy. In fact, we had a lot of fun during that whole time. It was very exciting. But when it was over, it was still ugly, because we'd really been dragged into the sewer, and it was really no fun to have gone there. And we really met, I think the only word is we met evil. I met evil. I met evil people. People who really, really want to hurt you. It's really terrible, but there are people like that who actually, Swami Kriyananda, when he was being interviewed by the opposition lawyer, he just took him on one day. And he just said to him, you know, you're a sadist. It gives you great joy to hurt people. That's why you became a lawyer. Because it gives you a right to be able to try to destroy people's lives. You know, then that was the worst part of it. It's just, wow. There are people who are so deep into this delusion that they actually get joy from hurting other people. And we all know that that exists. And so having met it in a relatively minor form, we were actually so happy because in ancient times we would have been arrested and put into prison or fed to the lions or something like that. We could still just have lunch in a restaurant and go home at night. It was great. We just had to go into court every once in a while and pay a lot of money. But after it was over, this is the whole point of all of this, I just kind of waited for my innocent ebullience to return. Because 12 years earlier, that's kind of what I'd been. I'd just been this innocent, just believing in all this and so on. It wasn't that my faith was hurt, but my experience of life had really changed. And then I also realized on a very deep level that happiness is a choice. And I had known that theoretically before. But I had, and this is the gospel according to Asha, because I've never really heard any great master describe life like this, but this is what I call my soccer ball drop kick theory of happiness. Okay? When we come into this world, it's like there's the soccer ball is dropped and they kick it like that. And that's like the momentum of our incarnation. We're little kids, we're happy, we're excited. Maybe we go to college, maybe we make an early marriage, we have children, or everything is just like this. And the soccer ball just keeps going. And then maybe it hits the ground, but it still bounces and rolls for a while. And that at some point in our incarnation, and maybe it happens to you when you're 6 years old, maybe it doesn't happen until you're 70, but it just comes to a dead stop. In other words, all the accumulated good karma, so to speak, or excitement of starting over again, having jettisoned whatever mess we'd made the last time, we get to start all over again. But at some point it comes to a dead stop. And that's a very critical point in our personal life, in our spiritual life, usually in our relationships, everything. And that's what I sort of felt after those lawsuits were over. The soccer ball just came to a dead stop. And I'd been used my whole life to having it just roll automatically. That my happiness was just automatic. And I realized, this is the point at which people get old. Because they just run out of steam and they just start, instead of continuing to expand, they just get smaller. And we've all seen people do that. One of my own father, he was so dear. But toward the end of his life, my mother was ill she had Parkinson's for like 12 years, 15 years maybe. And it wore my dad out. So the last couple of years, he just went on mental holiday. He just had a little sort of a mini stroke, and then his brain wasn't quite the same. And he was just cheerful and sweet. He just had checked out. And it was fine. He just went on a little vacation before he went into the astral world. But just before that happened, I was urging upon him some courageous embracing of some reality. And I said to him, he was resisting me, and I said, well, don't you want to grow? And it was so sweet. He looked at me and said, no. And I realized, well, of course he doesn't. He's tired. He's just finished. Shortly after that, he let his mind go. But no, he didn't want to grow. And now, that's much more common than for someone to say, yes, I want to right to the end, just courageously keep on struggling and keep expanding my consciousness. If you don't believe in life after, or even life after, then what difference does it make? You just make it through, which is exactly the phrase my dad used. No, he just wanted to make it through now. Oh, okay, I just backed off and just loved him. He didn't want anything more from me. But the whole course of our lives, it's like, what are we going to do? Are we going to get the illusion of age and sadness and evil and disappointment? Are we just going to let it gradually wear us out until we just sit there and wait to die? People wait to die from very early ages. And everything is referred back. I knew this elderly couple. They were both extremely dear. But it was such an interesting contrast between them, because she was entirely in the present. She could relate to her children, her grandchildren, current events, her young friends. She was always just there with whoever you were, whatever was happening. It wasn't that she was modern. She still was a woman of her times. She'd grown up in very comfortable circumstances and raised her family in comfortable circumstances, and she was talking about her grandniece or something with the family, and the older woman said to me, I can't imagine raising children without full-time live-in help. And I thought, what era are you from, woman? But that was her age. So she wasn't modern, but she was present. Her husband, by contrast, he would just wait until he could take the conversation back into what he already knew. And it was either what he already knew or even more what was behind him. It was such a striking contrast. He would just wait till he could take the conversation backwards. And then we would all wait while he took the conversation backwards into the world that he knew, and then we'd go on again. Now, whether it's as dramatic as that, or whether we're just living in the past or clinging to what is, these are very important and interesting questions. This is the question that Sanatana Dharma raises. Where does happiness come from? And Maya, this goddess, is always casting a net over us, trying to persuade us that the wrong answers are the right answers. Just think about yourself. Think about what you want. Cling to what you know. Fear the unknown. Isolate yourself from change. Prefer what I call the known misery to the possibility of changing yourself and becoming something more. Live from the outside in. And we just have to decide. We have to use the power of our discrimination, the faith in our own intuition, and this, the study of more expanded ways of thinking to constantly make those choices. There's a stanza in the Bhagavad Gita, it's a very important stanza. It says, "What is day to they use the phrase worldly man, but what worldly means is, I look to the outside for reality. What is day to the worldly man who looks to the world for reality is night to the one who practices yoga, who looks to the inner reality. And what is day to the yogi, the one who practices yoga, looks like night to the worldly person." And there's a lot of nuances of that. The interpretation of that can fill volumes. But what it really means is we have to start taking inner responsibility. And when we start taking inner responsibility, we come to words like chakras, Kriya, Kundalini, discipleship, magnetism, where we figure out where does energy really come from? And how do I really get mastery over what's really going on inside of me? What are the methods? What is the geography of that inner landscape? And how can I use it not just in a wildly esoteric manner, in seances with a few select friends, but when my children are waking me up in the middle of the night, or my boss is being impossible, or my finances aren't working as well as I want them to, how can I really generate energy from the inside to overcome this and find myself where I really want to be? So we're going to take a tea break before we try to answer those questions. So we'll develop a little more magnetism, okay? So just take a few minutes, gather your tea from the outside, bring it in here if you like. All right. Does anyone have any questions from what I was saying earlier before we go forward? Are there any questions that need to be clarified or answered? Nice to have new people in the front row. Okay. Yes.
I've just got a question about Maya.
Uh-huh.
Is that sort of like all the thoughts that we might tell ourselves about the reasons that we're doing things, and that's sort of creating
an illusionary world?
Illusion in
Maya is a very useful word, and Maya as a conscious force that tries to confuse us and as the personification of our confusion. So yes, I think anytime we're misled, I always love to say that it was Maya. I mean, and that's not untrue, because we have within us a wisdom nature, a soul nature, a superconscious self, an intuitive self that always knows what it's supposed to do and knows what the right action is. But in the weirdest possible way, sometimes we don't do that. So I like having someone to blame. The simple English way of saying it is, the devil made me do it. And I often give the devil credit because it's a little bit of a mind game, but it's a very helpful mind game. Because the fact of the matter is, we are many different dimensions at the same time. And I want to give my greatest loyalty to the wisest part of myself, and I don't want to feel guilty or ashamed if the wisest part of myself abdicates its responsibility to one of the lesser creatures who also inhabits my inner world. And so if I can feel that they've been corrupted by an evil influence, that's very comforting to me. You can see that I'm kidding, but only half kidding, because it also feels like that, doesn't it, sometimes? See, that's the power of the wonderful word Maya. That's really what it feels like. What could I have been thinking? But I was under the spell of Maya. And so I just went off on this tangent for a while because it just seemed like it made sense. And now I have to sort it all out, because merely to declare it Maya doesn't mean that I didn't do it and it's going to go away. But it's a more forgiving way to work with myself. At least I find it so. So once you get comfortable with the words and it doesn't make you uneasy, then it's really, the devil made me do it is really one of my favorites. Or more accurately, it seemed like a good idea at the time. That's that's become, in the worlds that I live in, that's sort of what we say to each other. I don't know, it seemed like a good idea at the time. No matter how nuts it looks like now, I thought it was a good idea, so I did it. Because Maya confused me. I was confused by Maya. And Maya is just all of those influences that just take us off our clear perception. And when I was talking, I had mentioned the long litigation that Ananda was involved in, and there's this dual force in the world. Wherever there's light, darkness often tries to come in and pull it down. I heard it explained in a perfect way. I mean, I'm touching many different points here, and I'll get back to the inner world in just a moment. A planet has a certain vibration of consciousness at a certain time. And according to Sanatana Dharma, this is a physical phenomenon, which is our Earth it's described this way, it's on an elliptical orbit. This is something that scientists are verifying. It's on an elliptical orbit because they believe that there's that we have a dual that keeps us in an elliptical orbit, that the two planets move like this. And so our planet moves closer and then farther away from the center of our galaxy. And they have discovered, and this is also an ancient tradition, that the energy source at the center is very powerful. So the closer our Earth orbits toward that energy center, the more energy there is on the planet, the more enlightened we become. As we move away from that, the planet falls into a dark age. And so this is the golden, the bronze, the iron ages, many traditions. The tradition is this is a 24,000-year cycle. 12,000 years moving toward the center, 12,000 moving away. Now the whole story is fascinating. There's a book called The Yugas, which is not published in India, which is where we get our books from, so we don't have it here. You can probably get it, though, from the US. Yugas. And that's the book is called The Yugas.
Let's turn off the mic.
Okay. And and the point is that, and this is a very important point for everyone to understand. So it's worth. The Yugas are a fascinating subject by itself. You can go on the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, and find about it, the ages of the world or something. I don't know what it's called there. But at any point in history, there's a certain vibration of consciousness that is the characteristic of the planet. Right now we are in an ascending. We have just shifted from a darker to a higher age, and we are in a rapidly ascending age. And that's what you see all around you, just this huge shift that's going on all over the planet. Just in technology, Swami once sat in a room like this and said, like 100 years ago, much of what's in this room couldn't even exist, wasn't manufactured. And just watching the way the world is just changing so fast. And here I am. I mean, I get on the plane in San Francisco, I watch a couple of movies, take a nap, and I get off in Auckland. And it's just as easy as pie. I'm going to New Zealand, and it feels to me like I'm going to Los Angeles, or I'm just going next door. It's just nothing to just go such a long distance around the world. You couldn't have done that. You would have had to get on a ship for weeks or on a caravan for months. And that's the least of it in every way, because we're moving into this higher age in which consciousness is much more expansive. Simultaneously, the shifting of the age is causing a polarity on the planet. So there's also this sort of last gasp of old consciousness, of sectarianism, of bigotry, of ethnic violence, and all of that has also increased. So we've got this strange polarity happening right now. The point being, at this point on this planet, which is early Dwapara is the second age, is what we're in right now. We're moving into Dwapara. In early Dwapara, because Dwapara lasts 2,400 years, or 3,600 years, it's 2,400. And at this point, the balance between light and dark is just what it is. So there's a lot of ascending light, and then there's still a great deal of darkness that keeps trying to pull it down, which is why we were sued, which is why Scandal rocks all these different good works all the time, because the planet can only sustain so much light right now. And it can only have so much light before the darkness has to balance it. It just isn't. As the ages progress, this planet, Earth, will become more light. The dark will shrink and it will be able to sustain more light because we'll be closer to the center. And you can't, however, spiritually evolve just by gripping the edge of the planet and hanging out there until it gets higher. Because when our physical bodies die and we go into the astral world, we don't necessarily, we come back to the planet that has the right vibration for us. And so this I find comforting. This is the point I was going to say, and this is about magnetism. We decided that incarnating on planet Earth at early Dwapara, which is this, was a good idea somehow, and that it was a suitable idea for us. So when we see the conditions on this planet, whether it's suffering inflicted on others or suffering inflicted on ourselves or lack of capacity just to have goodness be established, it's our own fault. What did we expect? This is the other thing that in the world that I live in, we say to each other, what did you expect? It's early Dwapara. If you wanted it to be different, you shouldn't have come back at this point. You should have waited until the planet was higher. But clearly we needed this challenge. Because what's also going on all the time is this is a gymnasium. This is an exercise room. This is this whole planet, and each one is in it. We're at 24-hour fitness club. That's where we are. And what we're always being asked to do is lift weights. And we're lifting weights, and we're strengthening our inner reality by the challenges that are given to us. I'm really, really lousy at the gym. I become bored, but I become bored as soon as I walk in, really. I cannot enjoy it. I've tried at various times to enjoy it, enough so that I can speak of it, with the machines and so on like this. And, I want the weights to stay really light. It's bad enough to have to sit there and do that stuff, but if you actually have to strain, it's just way beyond me. But of course, what do you gain if I just put the 10-pound on and just do this? Swami Kriyananda, who never really had time for exercise and had so many physical debilities that he really couldn't, he said pumping iron for him was wearing his watch to bed at night. Then every time he turned over, he was lifting it, I'm not as bad as he, but that being the point. But if you're going to go there, you're going to go there for the point of making yourself strong, aren't you? And so you have to keep increasing the challenge, don't you? Yes, Kali.
Asha, I really loved your analogy of the dropped soccer ball.
Yes.
And the momentum. So do you think that occurs maybe for everybody or just for half, the dumbbell analogy? Do you think that loss of momentum occurs for everybody at some point in their life?
Well, I'm on thin ice here because it's just something I made up. It's the gospel according to Asha. So I don't really know. But I've certainly met it in my own life and seen it in others, that we get in the habit of being pleased and thinking we're happy. And then discovering that when conditions change, we did not really have as much inner strength as we thought we had. And so you either just wait until, this is also the gospel according to Asha, but this is more valid. The purpose of our life is to expand into the light. And we can either move forward eagerly because it's beautiful and we want to go there, or we can stand still and then your backside will catch fire. And then you'll start running. So sometimes the soccer ball stopping is just you're not moving enough. And so something has to happen to make you start moving. But I have seen that people expire. People start out with great enthusiasm and then they let themselves expire because they don't work on developing the right magnetism. And this is where I was wanting to go. Magnetism is that force within yourself that gives you the energy to keep going and also attracts what you need. Either attracts challenges if you need them or attracts gifts. But magnetism is what is the force that moves you through this energy universe. It's all about energy against energy. And when we have magnetism, we can always deal with a situation. And when we begin to lose our magnetism or our magnetism goes sour, so when we think about magnetism, you see it's all about inner energy. And these were the words I was using, Kundalini, Kriya, discipleship. What gives us magnetism? I mean, if we think about it in our lives, one of the things that, let me just try to think about how to say this. I'm a little bit, okay. I mean, well, let me just start with the concept of what is magnetism. You know, all of us can feel when we have a flow of energy and we don't have a flow of energy, isn't it so? And I was talking the other night about the woman friend of mine who everything was going wrong in her life, and I said to her, is there anything that you really enjoy? And she told me the only thing she still enjoyed was riding her bicycle. And I gave her the assignment of riding her bicycle, every time she began to feel bad and worried, to just get on her bicycle. And she did. She started going out. And as soon as she started riding her bicycle, fresh air, movement, exercise, rhythmic breathing, just the positive association it had with it, then all of a sudden the sense of possibility in life also began to expand for her. And she had a more positive flow of energy, and as soon as she had a more positive flow of energy, she was hooked into the part of the universe in which positive was possible. She began, in other words, magnetically to attract to her a wholly different way of thinking. And she actually began to find solutions to seemingly insoluble problems merely by riding her bicycle, because riding her bicycle changed her magnetism. Right. And all that happened really was the way the energy shifted within her. Now, I had that word Kundalini up here a moment ago. Kundalini is a very subtle word, and it refers to the subtle energy that flows up and down the spine. People realize if you raise the Kundalini, that's how enlightenment comes. People have Kundalini experiences, which are either positive or not positive, where suddenly there's this rush of energy, and if it's a positive thing, they like it. If it's too much, then they don't like it. But the fact is, Kundalini is the energy, is the entire life force. Everything that we're doing is a question of Kundalini. It's not just a question of esoteric moments. The life force, we bring our whole spirit self into a physical body. And when we do that, we take all that spirit energy and we bring it right down the spine to the base chakra. And we lock the Kundalini essentially at the base chakra. Because if we don't, it sails right back out and we die. It has to be locked there for us to participate in the material world. When you watch someone die, if you do, I watched this one woman a friend of mine, I was doing the visual, and the way she died was just classic. You die from the outside, from the edges, your energy comes into the spine, and then the life force just comes right up the spine. And it either goes out through the medulla or it goes out through the spiritual eye. And you could just watch her. First the rest of her body became completely inert, and then you could watch the breath, and then you just watch the breath, become shallower and shallower as it just came right up the chakras and then went out. I can't say that she went out through the spiritual eye, but she went out in a very elevated state. But it was just fascinating. You could just see it, just simply withdrawing. And that's the opposite of when the sperm and ovum come together and it goes down to the spine. Because that's how the body is formed. It's the spine first, and then all those nerve plexes make all the combination and the whole body is made. So the Kundalini energy has to be all the way committed to the earth chakra. I keep having all this trouble with my pens here, aren't I? Down to the earth chakra, which is the first chakra, because that is what makes us have a material body. And the question is whether or not the energy is just absolutely trapped, you might say, in the earth chakra, which is to say all of our life force and our life direction trapped in the earth chakra and then does nothing but just look out to the material world. And you meet people who live essentially from their lower 2 or 3 chakras, and everything about them is earthbound. You know, the houses they live in, the entertainments they seek, the furniture that they buy, the colors that they like, just everything is about the world that we're looking at. And you can't talk to such a person about more subtle energies. You can't talk to them about life or death or moral issues or anything. It's just, well, let's just go out and let's have a good time and look at my new truck and, and in America there was a fad for a while of people just raising their trucks higher and higher off the ground. Did that ever get here? Where you'd have to have a little step ladder. Sometimes I just look at those vehicles, and I love to speculate about other people's consciousness. I would think, what kind of a world view would devote itself to that, and then be so pleased to have it. And pardon me? Yeah. Oh, and then sometimes you see the people who have those trucks, and it's like their whole consciousness is from the waist down. And even the way they walk. No, even the way they walk. It's just like it never goes like this. And when they're happy about things, they wiggle their hips, right? No, isn't it true? Yeah. You see it. That's how people will respond. They'll really want to show you. They'll shake their behinds like that. Like dogs, like dogs, their whole energy not only doesn't go below the earth chakra, it goes all the way out to the tail. And that's where the dog really expresses himself, right? With his tail, right? And so people, maybe they don't have tails anymore, but all their energy is just trapped in the earth chakra. Now, the way the chakras work is like this. Every chakra has a good dimension because you've got to have an earth element or else you don't have a physical body. It's like we have to, and what it represents is not the material. Let me say it like this. Every chakra has a positive and a negative way of expressing itself. Because the earth chakra represents a vibration. And that vibration is loyalty, solidity, groundedness. People who don't have enough energy in the earth chakra are just, ungrounded. That's what we say about them. They just float. And they don't have loyalty, which is really a very important quality of the earth chakra, is loyalty. But you can be loyal to the right, uplifting things, or you can be loyal to things that don't help you. So ideally, you have the earth energy and you have loyalty, but you have loyalty to that which is true. You have loyalty to the truth. Truth meaning that which takes you toward happiness, toward Sanatana Dharma. All right? So if the energy is trapped, people always talk about opening the chakras, but in real fact, what we're dealing with a lot of times is that we have holes in our chakras. Because instead of the energy, let me just make a picture that will look proper here. I'll put my famous chakra picture up here again. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. The earth chakra here, the way the chakras work when they work properly is that energy comes in, and energy comes in from the medulla, which is the opposite pole here, the medulla here. Energy flows in through the medulla and it circulates through the chakras. It circulates through all the chakras like this, but it's actually expressed with conscious will, and ideally with conscious will from the spiritual eye. When energy is not flowing properly, what happens is it just comes out and it basically just emanates from whatever vibration you're mostly on. And rather than gathering the energy and using it in a focused way, it just simply dissipates. And this is what happens. This is famously the second chakra is the sexual energy. But what famously this is being sexual energy, people's energy just flows and then flows out and is just dissipated. People who are too promiscuous and irresponsible in their use of the second chakra energy, they don't have any vitality. They don't have any magnetism. Yogananda used the phrase sex washouts, is what he called such people. Who just, the water element is also the concept of creativity, which is, can be just dissipated in promiscuity. But when it's focused properly, the water element allows you to be innovative and intuitive. Because the earth chakra has this quality of loyalty, but it's also very fixed. And if you have too much earth and not enough of the second chakra, you become rigid in your thinking. And you're not able to see creative possibilities. And all of this reduces your magnetism, right? Because if things aren't exactly the way you want them to be, you don't know what to do about it. Now, if you have good water chakra energy but not enough earth chakra, you become, what is that phrase? Wishy-washy, right? You can flow really well, but you don't have any loyalty to first principles. You don't have loyalty to truth, you just have the capacity to do anything. And these are people who, today I'm on this path, and tomorrow I'm on this path, and now I'm on this one, and now we're doing this. We had a child, her mother made a practice of taking her to see many different churches. I mean, she was just helping her, and the mother was also a little flighty too. Of course, Paramhansa Yogananda is the main guru, and we overheard this child saying, "Oh yeah, my mommy took me," the mother heard the child say to her little friend, 10-year-old girl, "Yes, last week my mommy took me to a new church. Now we believe in Parmesan Yugoslavia." So you can get quite confused if you don't have loyalty. Now, if you have loyalty to first principles, but then you're intuitive and creative in the way that you carry it out, then you're beginning to build something. Oftentimes when people have asked in these classes, talking about meditation, do I do this first? Do I do that? Is this what I'm supposed to do? Or is that what I'm supposed to do? Well, to a certain extent, and I've said to people, okay, I was teaching a couple of people the technique of Kriya Yoga. I said, you need to practice it exactly as Yogananda taught it. Don't innovate his fundamental practice. But where you place it in your meditation, how many times a day you do it, whether you're more devotional or more power-oriented, all these different things. This is the creative part of it. But if you don't have loyalty to what those who know more than you do suggest, then you just float around and are always just reinventing. You see how it works together. The third chakra is fire. And the third chakra, fire chakra, is absolutely essential for a whole lot of different reasons. The first three chakras are controlled by the third chakra, meaning that if you can have the third chakra in order, then the energy there will continue to flow properly. Fire is the application of energy to what you're doing, the application of energy to your spiritual practice. And this, again, you'll see people who say they're very devoted, are very flowy in what they do, but they don't have any energy. And they never really apply themselves. They just sort of read the book or go to the seminar or, listen to the music, but there's never willpower involved. And so willpower is what makes the difference. Because of that pesky thing that we were talking about a little while ago called Maya, that if you don't exert willpower, then just the delusive force of this world will just carry you wherever it's going to carry you. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the story of the Mahabharata, there are 5 warriors, and they correspond to the 5 chakras. And this chakra, for those of you who know anything about this, is Arjuna. And Arjuna is absolutely critical. If Arjuna doesn't fight properly, their cause will be lost. And the war is between Maya and spirituality. And Arjuna is the disciple who, in the Bhagavad Gita, has the conversation with Krishna. And what happened, the whole Gita is, the war is about to start, which is a symbolic war of the forces of spirituality against the forces of Maya. And Arjuna is losing heart for the battle, because the battle is against his own cousins. That's how the story is told, because we're on both sides of the coin, aren't we? You know, on one hand, we definitely want to transcend, and we want to be free, and we want to be elevated, and on the other hand, just leave me alone. I'm going to have my coffee and my croissant this morning, and then I'm going to watch my soap operas. I'm just going to do that, and another part of us aspires. And Arjuna, in the Bhagavad Gita, says to Krishna, I don't like this fight. I don't want to get rid of those qualities of mine. I don't want to have to go to war with myself. Why do I have to fight like this? And Krishna speaks to Arjuna very strongly, and that's the whole Bhagavad Gita, saying, look, Arjuna, everybody's depending on you, and if you don't fight, this whole cause is lost. And it's a good story, but what he's also saying is if you don't put out willpower, then the lower 2 chakras will just suck that energy down, and you're finished. Your spiritual life is finished. Also, this is the point. This is the fire chakra is the deciding link about how serious you are on the spiritual path. Because it is the point when you realize that this is not just a nice float down the river. This is not just getting on the raft and just sailing down the river. This is going to take everything I have. And I'm really going to have to do battle with myself, which is what it's about. One year, we used to go to India every couple of years, and we'd take a pilgrimage group with us from America, mostly Americans. Most of them were going to India for the first time, and we would follow a route that was related to these masters. Those trips still happen, but I'm not part of them anymore. One year, somebody had the bright idea that we would take a rafting trip down the Ganges. Great, yes, fantastic idea. I don't know what was going on that year, but the Ganges was really, really in high mode. And we got in these overloaded boats, and we were going down these incredible rapids, just incredible. And somebody who was with me said, I didn't really know what was happening, except that it was pretty exciting. I kind of have a certain fearlessness in India that is not my characteristic normally. But she said to me, I've done a lot of rafting and I know how dangerous this is. Should I say anything? I said, no, don't say anything. Let's just go down the river and have a great time. And it was, we made it all the way through, but it was a pretty exciting adventure. But it was about willpower and energy. It was a very interesting experience for me because we had to fight our way, and with the poles and the paddles and our guides, and I don't know, it was just a mad experience that happened one time. But and then the next year we went, it was absolutely placid. We all just lay on our backs and just drifted down this river. I thought, well, sometimes life is like that, but more often the willpower is involved. And this is the chakra in which you decide, I was starting to say it, that when you really have to acknowledge the fact of Maya, and there's a certain maturity, and I was talking about at the end of our litigation cycle. That was I hope that most people on the planet don't have to go what we had to go through. But to actually acknowledge the active presence of evil completely changed my attitude toward life. Because, now I'm not an innocent anymore. Now I know that things can really happen. Now I really know that I have to be strong in myself. Because, If it can happen once, it can happen again. And not everybody wants to go there. Some people prefer what Yogananda called just the romance of the spiritual life. I'm just going to enjoy this a little bit, and I'm not really going to do battle. I'm going to be like Arjuna was at the beginning and just say, no, I think I just won't do this. And then we get to experience Maya for a little longer until we decide that the suffering is not worth it, and that we're really going to do battle. There's no other choice. Let me think what the other point. The thing about, I said here, this loyalty to the wrong things or the wrong kind of loyalty can make you narrow-minded and what's the word? Stubborn, pig-headed. That's the word. Is that an expression here? Pig-headed? Yeah, just pig-headed. All right. The willpower used properly, which is to say willpower used in cooperation with your divine self, can give you a tremendous amount of self-control that can work in harmony with your higher self. Willpower used without harmony with the divine can just make you powerful but ruthless. And so many people have a tremendous amount of willpower, but they're not using it in harmony with the divine. And many people are very, very powerful. They have loyalty to a false idea. They're very creative in it. And they use their willpower to do it, but they're not working in harmony with the divine. And so what happens is if this chakra is off, it pulls the others down. If this chakra is off, it pulls these into it and it pulls the others down. This is the dividing line. And see, the fourth chakra, the quality of the fourth chakra is air. And what we're working with is fire has the power to transform earth and to dissolve water, to turn it all into energy. Fire is just amazing when you think about it. If you look at how small that is. I mean, it's so tiny, but what I find also interesting is no matter where you are in the room, it holds your attention, doesn't it? It has, in our Festival of Light, we hold up one candle. Gaze upon this light as a symbol of God's love, we say. And every time I look at it, I think it's so living. It has so much dynamism. It's so tiny. Now here's the other thing about this. We could ignite thousands of candles from this one, and it would still just continue to burn. The energy is sort of endlessly regenerating. Also, strategically but stupidly applied, we could ignite this whole building from this one candle. We're just starting with just this much energy. We could take this whole building, and if we did it carefully enough, we could turn this whole building into ashes. Now just think of that, what transforming power that is. From this little tiny thing, all of this that looks so solid. In 1976, which was now a long time ago, in the community that I was living in, Ananda Village, then we had a forest fire. That was a really exciting day. We'd had 7 years of drought, and a fire started downhill, hot summer day, June 26th, and the winds always came from a certain direction at that time, which was from downhill to uphill, and the fire started, and it burned uphill, and it just, in a matter of hours, it took out like 450 acres and 21 houses. Just amazing, most amazing thing. And part of you was appalled by it, and part of you was just absolutely awestruck. It was thrilling on a certain level to see what this fire could do. The fire, our brush clearing was terrible, and our houses were in this very forested area, and at a certain point, the fire came and hit the brush at the bottom of the trees. It went up, and then it does something called tree topping, which I'd never known about, which is where the fire goes across the tops of the trees. I mean, and it's way out of small human control. It has to be bombers and so on like that. But we just watched it, just boom, boom, like that. In a matter of hours, just years of work, just washed away. Quite exciting and energizing, and in the end, all to the good. But taken as a symbol, that means that there's absolutely nothing in your consciousness that can't be completely transformed by the firepower of your own nature. And this is how we get faith, because one, we feel the power of the grace of God. that there's no quality in you that cannot be transformed. And the grace of God is very interesting, because you work so hard for so long, and then when the change actually comes, you recognize that I didn't do it. And you just realize that something came into me that made it different. And that's the gaze upon this light as a symbol of God's love. That consciousness shifts and then everything is different. Because all that we are is a collection of how do we see it. So when you get the power of fire engaged, anything is possible. But the air element, this is what I was going to say, fire transmutes. And water turns to steam, material things turn to smoke. And what happens to all of it? It all just rises, doesn't it? And it just dissipates out. And that's what the air element represents. The application of fire to these fixed realities liberates them. And that's why this is the key juncture right here between these two. The application of willpower liberates what binds you. So you think that you're bound, but you're not bound at all. Apply your willpower to it, especially in harmony with the spiritual eye, because then you're drawing, I had put the word discipleship, guru up here. You're drawing the power of the divine. You're drawing the grace of the masters. And all of this is transformed, and then you begin to open. And the quality of this is, everybody calls it the quality of love. It's also the beginning of unity. It's not final unity, but it's the beginning of unity. And that's what love is, isn't it? When you love is what dissolves the differences between us, isn't it? When you love is when you feel unified, and whether you love nature, whether you love humanity, whether you love your country, whether you love your brothers and sisters and your own children, it begins to break down this sense of limitation. Now, if you just love and you have no loyalty, you love this one today and that one tomorrow, and my kids are a little too much trouble for me to take care of, and I'll just put my aging mother into a rest home and let someone else take care of her. If you don't have enough loyalty, your love doesn't have real power. If you're not creative, but your love is just, I love you because you're exactly this way and you will remain that way, and then I will keep loving you, your love doesn't work. And if your love doesn't have any willpower behind it, if you're not willing to do battle with yourself and expand your sense of patience and what you'll accept and your sense of responsibility, then you become airy-fairy. And lots of people on the spiritual path have a lot of heart, but they don't have anything underneath it. And so once again, you can sort of have a good time being a spiritual person, but you don't really transform yourself. And that's where all the elements have to come together. And the fifth chakra is the chakra, what Master calls ether. And ether is like more subtle than air. Because the level of air, still there's division. So if you merely love with your heart, you can feel close to people, but you can also easily be divided. Because the heart is the source of your likes and dislikes. So I like you because you like me. I like you because you conform to my values. I like you because you're pretty. I like you because you're handsome. I like you because you're rich. I like living at Ananda because it's easy and comfortable. I like being part of the spiritual path because everybody else thinks it's a good thing. And then all of a sudden you're in 12 years of litigation and you have to decide what you really believe. And are you in this because it's easy? Are you in it because you have the willpower and the loyalty and you're really going to stay with it? It doesn't have to be to a path, it can be to your own best interests. But then ether is where this is the foundation element, so to speak, of all of creation. So air unifies even more deeply. And the expansive quality of the throat chakra is peace and calmness, especially calmness. But the opposite side of that is apathy. That people think they're being calm, and they actually just don't give a damn, which is really not the same thing. And many people pretend to be spiritual by just pretending, oh, it's all the same, what difference does it make? But it's all the same. What difference does it make is not an expression of love or of willpower or of loyalty necessarily. And so when all of these are working together, that's under the guidance of the spiritual eye. This is when you have the power that you need for success in any undertaking. If you just want to make $1 million, this is how you, or millions of dollars. $1 million doesn't go very far these days. Millions of dollars, or a spiritual life. This is the forces that all have to be together. Now, we'll do a little more on this afternoon because I think we've just run out of time. Yeah. What do you know? It's lunchtime, and I've created another magnificent art piece. You're applauding my picture, no doubt. I can see that. Okay.